How's it going, guys? Malagant here. We are going to be looking at my Purifier, the Aura build. I call this the Righteous Purifier because I played quite a bit of like Path of Exile as well, and Righteous Fire was actually something that I was really enjoying back in the day. This character came up with like a couple of years ago, just from this helm right over here. This helm is called Gaze of Empyrean, and I was like, okay, so maybe we can do something that has, kind of like an aura damage around it, and then I ended up doing it. And with the recent patch, this item has been changed, tiny little bit buffed, so to speak. It used to give like pluses to Aura of Censure alone in the Inquisitor part. Now it is giving the entire Inquisitor. So when I was covering the patch, I ended up actually like thinking about making this character one more time, and I'm going to be showing this character to you right now, and we'll be talking about the build, pros and cons a little bit. Thanks for joining. Hope you guys are going to be liking the video. So that said, the main abilities that we have are Aura of Censure, the Vindictive Flame, and then we have Ulzun Wrath. Every single one of them, conveniently, they have been maxed out. They're at the ultimate rank. So this is like the strongest that they can be. And the range of the character is actually quite insane as well. If you pay attention, the training dummy is actually already taking damage from me. That is Grim Internal showing that Aura of Censure is actually reaching this training dummy. That is 13 yards in radius around the character. That Aura of Censure is not only going to be dealing quite a lot of damage, but at the same time it will be applying exactly 43% minus elemental resistance to everything. 35% coming from there, and then 8% will be coming from here, from the Malagant's infusion. Now to talk about a little bit of like pros and cons about the character. The pros is that like it's incredibly easy to play. It is very good for the campaign clearance. It is occasionally good for SR or Crucible farm as well, but it doesn't necessarily. So for the disadvantages a little bit, it is not the strongest when it comes to the single targets or when it comes to the survival either. So I wouldn't necessarily push something like SR70 with this. I would instead use a different character of mine. But it would be easily capable of doing something like SR60, and the best part about it is that it will be doing it with like quite comfortable, but at the same time extremely easy to play, very laid back. And the gameplay, like the play style of the character, is just like Righteous Fire from the Path of Exile, is completely passive. With the buttons that you're pressing, you're going to be improving the amount of DPS that you're dealing around you. But even if you don't press so many buttons, it's still going to be relevant DPS against, at the very least, the peasant targets. So we can go to an easy location just to showcase how I play the character. It's basically going to be charging into Horn of Gandar every single time. Charge, Horn of Gandar, and everything is hopefully going to be dying, basically. So charge, Horn of Gandar once again. Hey, this is lucky. So when we find a totem, we have a chance to like showcase the character versus sort of like strong units as well. So we put our Thermite Mines, we put an Inquisitor Seal, so this is only 2 buttons, and then we click it. This is pretty much it. You still do need to charge, and you still do need to shout, but otherwise, the character's DPS with the addition of, Inquisitor Seal and the Thermite Mine is going to be ridiculously high, and it will be killing the targets. At the same time, Seal of the Inquisitor, we have about like 15 points committed to it, and the character has other different layers of defenses that are capable of kicking in depending on the percentage of HP that you have remaining as well. So not only the Seal of the Inquisitor, but also other stuff that are kicking and defending you as well. So thanks to these layers, which we will be talking about very shortly, you will be actually able to survive inside the Seal for a very long time, and versus even very strong units, let's say. Let's talk about the defenses while that is mentioned real quick. We have the Blast Shield that's going to be kicking at 60%, which is giving you quite a lot of, damage absorption, which is going to be scaling additively with the Seal as well. So you're pretty much going to be for about like 4 seconds quite immortal, to be honest with you. It's also going to be like making it very easy for you to, recover from that 60%. So when you hit the 60%, you'll be able to go back to 100 thanks to the Word of Renewal or Health Potion. The second line of defense is going to be Prismatic Diamond, which is kicking in around like 50%. They have recently nerfed this. The cooldown is cooldown is 60 seconds now. But to be honest with you, with this character, I have only seen the Prismatic Diamond proc maybe once. The next line of defense is actually going to be some sort of like a cluster. At the same time, you can definitely use something like Tincture as well. But the cooldown of Blast Shield is very low. You know, by the time that you're there, the Blast Shield is probably going to be back up again. So it is pretty good. And the amount of damage, if you pay attention, the Ulzun Wrath, I think, is the biggest one. 33% reduced target's damage by 3 seconds. So no matter what we are fighting, they're actually dealing 33% less damage to us. That is very big as well. How the Vindictive Flame and the Ulzun Wrath works is that it's some sort of like a retaliation kind of thing. But this one is capable of hitting 9 targets anywhere in the screen pretty much. But it needs to be ticked by basically some sort of like an attack that is coming your way. So it is tiny little bit better than retaliation in that sense. If we talk about our active abilities in the entire skill tree, we have the Word of Renewal that I am constantly using. We have the charge that is coming from the mobility augment. It is called Rune of Blazing Ends. This is the absolute best one for this build, in my opinion. It puts a very good burn and it's very easy to use. At the same time, it has an extremely high chance to proc the Meteor Shower. As you can see, it's 100% chance of the time it will be proccing our biggest proc most likely. Other active abilities is that we have the Thermite Mine, which is only going to be used versus, you know, some place that we are going to be standing still and fighting. Same goes for the Seal of the Inquisitor. Other than that, we have the Horn of Gandar as well. Horn of Gandar, not necessarily the most useful ability in this character, to be honest with you guys. You can definitely take something else, such as Flashbang, which is going to be performing better and is going to be improving your character, simply because you will be reducing the target's defensive ability and therefore you're going to be critting more often. However, I kind of wanted to make this character as passive as it can get. Flashbang not only requires targeting, but also has a travel time, so it was going to make the character a tiny little bit more annoying to play, so to speak. But if you would like to play it that way, feel free to take the Flashbang instead of Horn of Gandar. How I would take it is basically I would be 12 over here and I would just put 1 point into this. So it's going to be very easy to take that many points actually when you drop this. It's going to be covering it entirely. Apart from that, we have literally no other active abilities. You can see on my bars as well. One other active thing that I have is the Seal of Destruction. This is definitely not necessary. I simply took this for proccing the Phoenix. And this is pretty much like a little bit try hard. It really synergizes perfectly with the character, because what Phoenix does is, in fact, it gives you yet another aura that's going to be dealing damage around you, but at the same time it will be absorbing even further. So this is yet another line of defense, in fact, that you have that will be absorbing damage and will be additively stacking up with the Seal of the Inquisitor. Now that's out of the way though. I should say that I'm going to be sharing 2 different Grim tools down in the description below. One of them is going to be the character that I am playing, and the other one is going to be sort of even more passive than the one that I'm showcasing right now. So it's not going to be having neither the Stormfire, I want to say. Yeah, it's called Stormfire. So it's not going to be having the Seal of Destruction, and it's not going to be having the Phoenix over here either. So it's going to be a little bit more of a passive play. If you would like to go for that, it's going to be up to you. But this is the character that I am playing. We can also talk about a little bit of like stats, what are you know, how it is looking overall. To be honest with you, let's start from like the worst part of the character, which is the armor. Staying below 2k idle, not the greatest. But while we are fighting, and if we are fighting something that's say okayish or relevant, if you want to say, it's going to be going for about like 2.2k, I want to say. Let's see if we can find yet another totem somewhere around here and use our cooldowns. Right now it's 2k because of a proc that we have, but perhaps we are going to be having Tincture as well, you know, included. So that's going to be giving us about like 2.4k, maybe 2.2k-ish armor, which is what matters while we're fighting something relevant, obviously. So it's going to be 2.5k in fact. 2.5k armor is good, but obviously this requires you to press the buttons to get there, which what I used is simply put, it's Courageous Tincture, that's it. You can find this item, I'm using this with every single character of mine, literally. You can find this item from Homestead. It's going to be sold by the Homestead Reputation NPC right over here in fact. This guy right here is going to be selling you the Courageous Tinctures, and I buy about like 200 of them all the time on every single character of mine, and I put it right over there. So that out of the way as well, let's keep on looking at the stats. As I said, the worst part about it is probably the armor rating, but you know, when you use your abilities, and the Courageous Tincture is going to be sitting in an okay sense. The physical resistance is about like somewhat manageable, 25% right now, but it does require you to have good rolled items. You're going to be having a worse physical resistance if you have, let's say, a worse rolled Hellforge leg plates than what I'm using here. Apart from that, most of our stats are fine. When we are fighting, we have about like 3.2k, maybe a little bit higher even. Offensive ability, the same thing can be said for like defensive ability is going to be above 3000. And at the same time, as we talked about the line of defenses that are kicking in back to back, it is definitely covering these things up with the absorptions as well. It's really cake, and the character has two different heals, which is obviously the heal potion and the Word of Renewal, which is on a very low cooldown, to be honest with you. It's pretty easy to play in that sense when it comes to survival. Our crit damage is about like 44%. That is very high in my opinion for a character like this. And let's also look at fire damage and burn damage before we wrap this up when it comes to like stats. The burn damage is sitting about like 2.2k without procs, and the fire damage is going to be 2.4, which is not too bad. So another con that I'm going to be talking about on this character is that, like, even though this character is the easiest character out there to play, maybe, it still is not necessarily that beginner friendly, because the items that you see on your screen, you will need these items to sort of support the character that I'm presenting here. Otherwise, it's not going to be having, you know, this sort of capability. It's going to be definitely much, you know, weaker, a lot weaker, let's say. Every single item is synergizing and giving you either a proc or a defense line, and that is extremely important in that sense. The only thing that you can perhaps swap is maybe instead of like an Ascendant Conduit, you can run another Malagant's Infusion, which is, you know, arguably even harder than finding something like this. It's good that I mentioned this, because this reminds me, I also would like to tell you how to find an Ascendant Conduit for yourself. I would definitely recommend you to find a Hellfire one, the prefix being the Hellfire. The suffix doesn't necessarily need to be that try hard. I ended up finding an Onslaught. Probably the best one would be a Conflag, so a Hellfire Ascendant Conduit of Conflag is probably the best one. But to be honest with you, anything would be okay in the suffix, just the Hellfire, because you want the Ring of Flame proc from your thingy. So it might actually sound very difficult to find something like this if you just go about killing stuff, but it is not that difficult, simply because you can farm this item in the Malmouth Steelcap district by just buying it off the NPC. Right over here, this guy is going to be capable of selling you several of them, in fact, and every single time you reset his inventory, he is going to be selling you new ones. All you need to do is basically either relog, or you can also teleport into another DLC. So you can teleport to Vanilla, you can teleport to FG, and then teleport back here, and he's going to be selling you new stuff every single time. I think it's also possible for you to spend about like a minute within the AOM somewhere else and then come back. That is, you know, it's entirely up to you. Just make sure that you have enough iron bits to be able to buy something incredibly good, which is going all the way up to like 600,000 iron bits, because I have made a mistake. One time I didn't have enough iron bits to buy a double rare such as this one, and I did miss a Hellfire Conflag on stream, which was very, very upsetting. So, we are going to be, before closing this video, we're going to be talking about the amount of procs to make things a little bit juicier. let's talk about the procs that the character is bringing to the table, which is absolutely the best part about this character. It's not only, it's not only the Aura of Censure and the Vindictive Flame with the Ulzun Wrath coming into play and dealing damage. It's also everything else that we bring. So we obviously buff the Aura of Censure over here, and with this one we're buffing the Vindictive Flame even further. Now from the rings we're gonna have a Ring of Flame. From the other ring we're gonna have yet another Ring of Flame. As you remember from the Ascendant Conduit, thanks to it being a Hellfire prefix, we're gonna have yet another Ring of Flame. The Hellforged leg plates is going to be bringing, yes, another Ring of Flame, and every single one of these, they do stack up as long as they proc. The chance of procking this way or the other, they have like different chance of procs. Let's say this one is 10% chance on attack, so this will be frequently procking. But this one is not so much, 33% chance on critical attack. This one over here is 20% chance, but when you are hit, so you need to get hit for this one to proc. The same thing is for this guy as well. You need to get hit for it to proc. So for instance, if I was fighting a dummy, we would never be able to see a Ring of Flame from the Pens and the Conduit ever. Another proc that we are bringing to the table is going to be the Cinder Wind, which is really nice. It actually looks incredibly cool on the screen, and I also have some Ether Missiles from my Kaizen Burning Eye, but you really don't need this. As long as you have somewhat okayish Kaizen necklace, you could definitely go for it. What I have done on my necklace, as I prioritize fixing my resistances, you should probably do the same. So if I am not mistaken, it was Pierce resistance that I was missing, tiny little bit of vitality as well, and this necklace not only brought me that, but also brought me tiny little bits of fire and burn damage as well. So it was very, very convenient in that sense. But as I said, like when I'm going to be sharing the Groom tools, you don't necessarily need to find something as big as this, or maybe even better. You can just fix your resistance from your necklace, and that is going to be more than enough. Yet another proc that we have, almost forgot, is Ignifire's Combustion. And I would actually like to show you how easy for this guy to proc. It is insane. I'm just going to be standing right next to the dummy, and boom, it is there. So from this moment, let's stay a little bit. This face right over here is the Ignifire's Combustion proc, and it will always stay on your target. So it is incredibly useful. This thing is, you don't necessarily need to press any buttons at all. It is going to be within close range. It's going to be up at all times, and it is absolutely insane because, guys, yet another passive minus elemental resistance to your character. So what was it? 43% just without pressing anything was from, if you remember at the start of the video, was from Aura of Censure. Now we have 10% more. So it is 53%. On top of that, we will be able to obviously put the Thermite Mines to go even further with the minus resistance, and we will be having our Devotions to go even further as well. So we have a couple of procs indeed coming from Devotions as well. Obviously the minus resistance to fire, which is called the Eldritch Fire, is on the Thermite Mines because it only makes sense. Thermite Mines are being used versus the big targets on this guy, and that is when we need this to proc. Nowhere else, pretty much. The same thing can be said for the Elemental Storm, but in this case for the Elemental Storm I'm using Horn of Gandar. So you will be seeing Elemental Storm pretty much proccing every single screen as long as you are charging and then using the Horn every time, just like I have suggested. The Fissure is going to be coming from Inquisitor Seal, so you won't be really seeing the Fissure all that much unless you're fighting something relevant. The proc chance is sort of low, and to be honest with you, if I could fix this somehow, I would have liked to fix it because I think the Fissure proc is actually really nice. One of the better procs in the game is the Meteor Shower, and we have a 100% chance to proc it, and the cooldown is not high at all. It's 3.5 seconds. So even if you're fighting something big and standing still, such as like the the totems and nemesis, you will need to charge. Remember that even in melee range, you will need to charge. The last proc that we have is going to be the Phoenix Fire. If you choose to play with it, it's on the Stormfire, and this is some sort of like a defensive proc. It's more defensive than it is for the offense, 100%. So that is also why I have it on my Stormfire, because The only time that I'm ever pressing my Stormfire ability, this guy, is when I am actually fighting such as like a boss or a nemesis that's going to be tanking me for a while. So after putting my stuff down and after standing next to it, I'm literally just spamming Stormfire so that we crit and get a Phoenix Fire proc as soon as possible as well, so that our defenses are a little bit higher than it is without this. That is going to be it, you guys. I really hope you are going to be enjoying the build. If you're a beginner to Grim Dawn, I wouldn't necessarily recommend playing this guy specifically, not because it is hard to play. It's actually the easiest character out there that I have made so far. But you will need these items, definitely. So once you have somewhat these items, you will be able to play this as well. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please remember to leave a like to the video as well. It definitely helps the video out a lot, actually. And at the same time, if you'd like to ask any questions at all, please feel free to do so. If it's necessary, I'll be coming up with, like, you know, yet another video to answer the questions. Otherwise, I'll definitely be answering down below as well. Or I'll try to, like, leave all the relevant links in the description section below as well, including the Grim tools. And right before closing, actually, I would also like to say the add-on that I am using is called Grim Internals. If you would like to check it out, it's very good when it comes to the information of like debuffs, enemy HP, enemy names, etc. Peace out, guys. Take care.